I lived in Africa until the year 1761. Then it was a slave trader bound my hands and feet and threw me into the black hold of a ship. I was only 8 years old. When my eyes grew accustomed to the darkness, I saw I was one of many captured Africans. But I couldn't speak to them, for none knew my language. After many fear-filled, torturous days, the ship anchored at Boston Harbor. Our foul-smelling bodies were washed and our clothes replaced with clean rags. Now, with irons on our legs, they dragged us through the streets to the center of town. There was a great crowd of people. They were speaking in another strange tongue. Voices rose excitedly as one after the other of we Africans were placed on a wooden platform. There we were fingered and probed and tested. When it came my turn to mount that platform, there were no excited voices. There was only silence. No one wanted a sickly 8-year-old child. There I stood, shamed and shivering. Suddenly, a well-dressed gentleman raised his hand. Quick as a wink, I was handed down to Mr. John Wheatley. Mr. Wheatley had purchased me to serve his wife. She bathed the bruises on my body. She gave me nourishing food, and she made me rest. Yes, the Wheatleys were very kind to me. They gave me new clothes. In a room all my own, I was taught the English language, taught how to read and how to write. Some years later, I began the study of Latin. At age 18, I translated Homer from Latin to English. It was Homer's beautiful poetry that inspired my own verse writing. Once again, the Wheatleys encouraged this effort. Because my health was still fragile, Mistress Wheatley said,
"Our son must travel to Europe on business, and you are to accompany him, Phyllis. The sea air will be good for your health."
The journey was a pleasant one, and my duties as servant were few. While in London, Master William showed my poems to friends who arranged for immediate publication. Thus, at 19, I became America's first Black poet. Once back in America, we found the country embroiled in a war of independence. To show my admiration of the general heading our army, I dedicated a poem to him. It so pleased General George Washington that he shook my hand and said, "Phyllis Wheatley, you have a great talent. We are proud of you." On my 21st birthday, the Wheatleys gave me my freedom, and I married a free Black man. Though I lived only until my 28th year, my poems still live on. I am proud to be America's first Black poet.
Most folks, they don't know this, but I am the sister of Crispus Attucks. Crispus and me, we was born slaves, property of Master William Brown of Framingham, Massachusetts. We was slaves, but Crispus, he was mighty independent. He tried to buy our freedom, and when the master, he said, "Nope," Crispus and me, we runs away to Boston. Crispus was 27 and I was 29. When we gets to Boston, we got to make sure the master, he don't find us. So Crispus, he goes away on a whaling ship, and I lays low and waits. Sometimes 3-4 weeks, I waits for the ship to come back. I remembers one day Crispus come back from a long sea voyage, and he say, "There's a heap of trouble a-brewing." Folks, they don't like the British soldiers that the king sent here. Town folks say, "I comes to America for freedom, and those soldiers, they trying to take that freedom. They is spying in all our affairs." This troubles me. We colonials, we got to do something. You and me, we don't want slavery. Not any kind of it. That night, Chris, he go to the town square to make a speech to the people. His speech making sound real good. He say things like, "All these soldiers parading around here, we gonna let them do that? Let them scare us into paying more tax? If we wants to keep our freedom, we got to stand together. We got to fight back with all our might." My brother, he sound real good. But I worries that all this talking gonna get him in trouble. One snowy night, the trouble, it comes. It was March 5th. March 5 in the year 1770. Yes, that's when the Boston Massacre, it happened. It was 9 o'clock. We was about to bang the fire and blow out the candles when we hear bells ringing. Fire bells they was. I look out, but I don't see no fire. So why the fire bells ringing? And Crispus, he say, "Them ain't no fire bells. Those are bells signaling for the men to come to the town square." Crispus, why are they signaling for the men to come to the town square? Crispus say, "That morning, a British soldier knocked over a young boy. Knock him down without no reason. Town folks is mighty angry and we want to do something about it. Sis, you stay here in case there be trouble. We men, we don't have no guns, but I feel it in our bones there's about to be some fighting." And Chris, he walk out the door. Women, we is always left behind. Not me. I just got to see what the men folks is up to. I follow Crispus real careful like so he don't see me. And when I get to the town square, the soldiers, they got their guns up. But Crispus, he ain't scared. He yells out, "Men, the only way to get rid of these troops is to attack." And the men, they throw their stones at the soldiers. At first, the soldiers, they back away. But then they turn, they raise their guns, and someone yelled, "Fire!" And the soldiers, they shoots their gun. Crispus is the first to fall. I runs over, but he already dead. 4 more townfolk, they too lose their life. Your history books call this the Boston Massacre. But I calls this the first Black American who dies fighting for his country. Today, my brother's name is carved in stone in the Boston Common. Brave Crispus Attucks.
I am there. $50, the Negro girl, Isabel Hardenberg, sold to Mr. John Neely.
I was 9 years old when I heard those words. 9 years old. And I knew I'd never see my mama again. And my new master, he speak a language I never heard before. You see, our old master, Mr. Hardenberg, he spoke Dutch, and so all his slaves spoke Dutch. 'Cause I wanted to make my mama proud, I learned the English language that the Nellies spoke. I learned English fast so I could understand what my new masters they wanted. Even so, my face and my back was often sore from all the slapping and the beatings. Before I go to bed at night, I say, Lord, is it right for the Neelers to hit me when I work so hard? The Lord must have heard me, for that spring the Neely sold me to Mr. Martin Schreiber. The Schreibers, they was kind to me, and I liked working for them. I was happy working for them. Then, once again, I heard them fearsome words.
Sold for $300, Bill Schreiber, 13 years old, 6 feet tall, sold to John Dumont.
My name no longer Isabel Schreiber. My new name, Belle Dumont. Then, at 15, I fall in love. The young man was a slave from the next door farm, and we planned on marrying. Mr. Dumont, he say, "You can't marry a Peterson slave. Effing if you do, your babies, they'll be Peterson's property." Mr. Dumont, he make me marry one of his own slaves, an old man named Thomas. I had 4 babies with Thomas, and he promised not to sell our children. 4 more properties for Mr. Dumont. But then, one day, when little Peter was 5 years old, Mr. Dumont put him on the auction block. "Master," I say, "you have no right selling my son." Mr. Dumont, he say, "I have every right. Peter will be well cared for. I sold him to a doctor in New York City." "But you promised not to sell my chillins." "I'll tell you what, Belle. If you work extra hard, I'll let you join your son in 1 more year." 1 more year? Why, that'd be July 4th, 1826. I worked hard and I lived for that day. And when that day came, Mr. Dumont say, "I can't let you go, Belle. You didn't work hard enough. Wait till next year. That's when the state of New York free their state slaves." Mr. Dumont, he make a promise, but 'cause I be a slave, he don't keep that promise. Then, that night, I grab all my extra clothes, and I put him in a pillowcase, and I put on my sunbonnet, and I grab my walking stick, and I steal away. I felt good walking. It felt good. I felt like the Lord, he made me a new person. So I say, "Lord, give me a new name." The Lord must have heard me, for the name Sojourner came to mind. You all know what a sojourner is? A sojourner is a person that goes from place to place. And that's what I do. go from place to place. The name, it felt comfortable, like a pair of old shoes. Sojourner. Now I need a handle for my name. Sojourner Tubman? No. Sojourner Schreiber? No. Sojourner Neely? None of those names fit. They are the names of my old masters. Now, the Lord's my master, and his name's Truth. I am Sojourner Truth. Yes, that's the name I use as I go from place to place. Go from town to town, always looking for my son Peter. Then, one day, I come upon a white woman talking about freedom for the white ladies. There's a big crowd listening. And she say, we ladies would like the freedom to vote. She could hardly get this out, but there was some men over there screaming things like, what you trying to be a man for? Don't you got one? I held on as long as I could. Then I got up and I said, man, you just listen to me. That woman over there, she trying to tell you things is out of kilter. And that bald-headed man over there, he trying to say that women can't have the same rights as men because God weren't a woman. Where'd your God come from? From God in a woman. After that, those men, they quiet. And everybody, all the peoples got to hear the importance of a woman and that they vote. All that in the year 1851. In the meantime, we black folks, we get our freedom, and those white ladies, they didn't get their freedom until the year 1920. And me, I kept on sojourning, speaking out the truth. Then, with my son Peter and my grandchildren beside me, I closed my eyes for the last time. Yes, in 1853, 1883, my sojourner, it was over. And just before all that, while that was going on, Sojourner Truth was the first African-American woman to win a case to get her son back against a white man.
Reward for the capture of runaway slave Harriet Tubman. Harriet cannot read or write, but she is strong as an ox, brave as a lion, and cunning as a fox.
Yeah, that's what they say about me. I was strong enough, brave enough, and smart enough to lead 300 souls to freedom. You all know my name. That's right, Harriet Tubman, the Black Moses of my people. When Master, he died, I don't want to be sold again. So I pack a small bundle, sneak out of my quarters, and I follow the North Star to freedom. Come daylight, I hide in the woods, or I find a station on the Underground Railroad. Everybody knows about the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad was a whole string of houses where white folks and some free black folks, they hired the runaway slaves. We called them runaways passengers, and the persons leading them, they was the conductors. The stopping off places was the station, and them who gave us shelter was the Asians. Them Asians, they were the true heroes, for they knew if they be caught hiding or run away, they would end up hanging from a tree. Me, I was one of them conductors. I go back south 19 times to do my conducting. I do this even when there was a big reward for my capture. Most of my passengers, they do what I say, but some is so scared. They say, I'm going back. I'm going back to the plantation. It's then I pick up my gun and I say, slave, see this gun? You come with me or you be dead. They make these scared ones get up and march along with us. After Lincoln, he signed the papers that we make us free. I don't have to do no more conducting. So I say, I'm gonna help this president win this war. So I joined the army as a nurse, and I do a little spy working on the side. Mm-hmm. The United States Army, they don't forget me many years later. When I die, they bury me with the drum, the bugle, and all the military honor. It makes this old lady proud. She be a free American.
My name is Gwendolyn Brooks. You may never have heard of me, but 24 years ago, the governor appointed me Poet Laureate of Illinois. I suppose you're thinking, Poet Laureate? What's that? The name had its origin in ancient Greece. When a poet wrote some distinguished verse, he was crowned with a wreath of laurel leaves. So, Poet Laureate means crowned with laurels. I'm happy with this distinguished title, but I feel a poet should do more than just wear a crown. The poet should be a servant to the young. That's why each year I sponsor a poetry contest for Illinois students. The winners receive prizes of money. Perhaps some of you may have entered those contests. Let me tell you something about myself. I was born in Topeka, Kansas, but quite early my parents moved to 43rd and Champlain on Chicago's South Side. Father was employed as a janitor, but his leisure time was spent reading poetry, sometimes reading it aloud to me. Soon, I began writing verses. At age 7, I had the nerve to send my poems to magazines for publication. They were always rejected, but that didn't discourage me. I kept on writing more poems and sending them to more publishers. Finally, at age 13, I saw one of my poems in print. You may be sure that was a proud moment for me and a proud moment for my parents. After graduating from elementary school, I went to Hyde Park High School and then to Wilson Junior College. My parents couldn't afford a 4-year college education, but I said, don't worry, I want a college degree, so I'll work until I have enough money to return to school. Unfortunately, this never happened, but today I am the proud possessor of 40 honorary college degrees. One day at a poetry meeting, I met Henry Blakely, a fellow writer. My first thought was, I'm gonna marry this handsome man. And I did. Our marriage met with some troubled financial times, but I kept on writing poems and stories. Then, in 1950, things began to happen. I was home, sitting in the dark, for there was no money for the overdue electric bill. All of a sudden, a telegram arrived. I lit a candle and read, "Congratulations, you have won the 1950 Pulitzer Prize for Poetry." I was the first Black poet to receive this award. But sometimes I wonder, what's so special about being a poet? The only difference between poets and others is that a poet bothers to put things on paper, while others, they just keep walking down the street with their heads down, looking down at the ground like this. Is that you? Lift up your head. Look around you. You'll find much to write about. And above all things, don't drop out of school. You'll need all the education you can get. And speaking of education, one day I saw 7 boys playing hooky, and I went home and wrote a poem just about them. I call this poem, "We Real Cool." We real cool. We left school. We lurk late. We strike straight. We sing sin. We thin gin. We jazz June. We die soon. I didn't write that poem about you. I know that you, like Wheatley, Crispus Attucks, and all of the others, will be an inspiration to future generations. So for that, I want to give you a big hand.